American Medical Response, the largest private emergency medical transportation company in the U.S. and the only ambulance provider in Multnomah County in July 2019, made it mandatory for all of their 500 paramedics and emergency medical technicians in Oregon to pass self-defense training. The two 2019 headline-grabbing events that preceded this policy are Jeremiah Ray, a homeless man who in February attempted to carjack an ambulance and successfully stabbed the two EMTs inside before fleeing. The craziest part of this story is that 14 days after his arrest, he was released to walk the streets without even posting bail. If you're interested in this story, I've already made a YouTube video about it, which I've left a link at the end of this video for. And the second story was a man, Joseph Coffin, who in March was restrained in the back of an ambulance on the way to a hospital, who broke loose and took control of his ambulance. The EMTs inside fled, and he proceeded to crash into several cars before the police used a spike strip tire flattening device near Madison High School. This man was taken into custody and was driven in a different ambulance to a hospital. Like, maybe after he breaks out of one ambulance, you cuff him and put him in the back of a patrol car. Maybe? Just a thought. Jesus. He later pled not guilty to robbery, unauthorized use of a vehicle, reckless driving, and assault. Quote, "On a regular basis, we encounter people that become violent or unpredictable," said Tiffany Hofstetter, a lead paramedic who has worked in Multnomah County for 13 years, and was one of the EMTs ejected from the ambulance by Joseph Coffin. "It's becoming more and more of a concern on a daily basis that we go home unscathed." In August, two paramedics reported being attacked in North Portland by a woman they were aiding and a man who knew her. One paramedic was punched in the face and the other was hit with pepper spray. Quote, "This mandatory self-defense training isn't about chokeholds or submission," Robert McDonald of Multnomah County Operations Manager for AMR said about the training. "This is about how do we get away safely so that we can get our law enforcement partners to get more engaged and provide the scene safety that we need to continue the continuity of care with the patient." American medical response workers don't carry any weapons because it would go against their primary goal of helping people, McDonald said. Employees are allowed to buy ballistic vests to wear under their uniform, he said, but he didn't know how many had done so. Assaults on emergency medical service workers are becoming more frequent, federal data shows. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention estimated 3,500 emergency medical workers were treated in hospitals in 2016 for injuries stemming from violence suffered while on duty. That was up from 3,200 in 2015 and an estimated 2,600 in 2014. Locally, McDonald attributed the increase of dangerous encounters to a Portland police policy changed in 2016 that called for officers to more routinely request people in mental crises be taken to a hospital by ambulance rather than patrol car. The police then transfer an involuntary mental health hold to the ambulance service and wouldn't even have to go to the hospital at all. The National Alliance on Mental Illness, along with Disability Rights Oregon's, welcomes the change, but pushed for clear standards for ambulance providers, enhanced crisis intervention training for ambulance workers, and annual training on when to use restraints. And when I hear that, I'm thinking, when to use restraints? How about any and all crazy, homeless, or drugged people for starters? This change came after a 2012 federal investigation found Portland police engaged in a pattern of excessive force against people with mental illness. As a result, McDonald said, AMR workers' interactions with behavioral health patients in crisis have increased. Behavioral health-related calls have increased by 3 to 5% every year since 2016, and they tend to be the ones with higher cases of verbal or physical assaults against paramedics. According to data from the Multnomah County District Attorney's Office, as well as police and media reports, at least 8 cases have been prosecuted since 2018 involving people arrested for attacking, threatening, spitting on, or otherwise interfering with paramedics on duty. 6 of those cases occurred in 2019. Those workers subjected to these mandatory self-defense training classes dodge foam batons masquerading as knives, block punches from colleagues holding boxing pads, and maneuver out of headlocks. Jeff Burrer, an AMR lead paramedic, said he tells his coworkers that hitting an attacker should be the last resort, and to remember that not everyone is lashing out in anger. Yeah, we wouldn't want to give the violent crazy person attacking you a boo-boo now, would we? Remember that 2012 federal investigation that found the Portland police were, quote, using excessive force against people with mental illness? The report singled out stun gun use, saying officers discharged them, quote, without justification or used them too many times on a given suspect. The report also said officers were too often using force for relatively minor offenses. Daryl Turner, who incidentally is the only sensible bureaucrat in Portland, is the president of the Portland Police Association. He said he disagrees with the Justice Department's position that Portland officers engaged in a pattern of unreasonable force against the mentally ill. He also pointed out that the report says what officers have been saying for years. Oregon's mental health infrastructure is broken and leaves officers as frontline responders to the mentally ill. The equation is simple, Turner says. We need more officers to help address the increased demands placed on them by a broken mental health infrastructure. If you're interested in that, check out my other video called the Portland Police Recruitment Crisis. I'll leave a link at the end of this video. So once again, the mayor of Portland, who is also the police commissioner, gets unfounded negative PR about his officers. The mayor, rather than stand up for his officers' reasonable use of force and police procedures, kowtows to the touchy-feely mob, and the buck is passed to spread the rapidly increasing danger to undertrained private sector employees who only want to help people and did not sign up for unarmed confrontations with drug-fueled crazy homeless people with nothing to lose. What could go wrong? The justifications given for moving from stun gun, handcuffs in the back of the patrol car to no stun gun, Velcro straps in the back of an ambulance are such peace and love, can't we all just get along, hippy-dippy bullshit, it makes me fucking sick. Quote, this is really not criminal behavior, so why do you put someone who needs help, frankly, in a caged police car? It's not the appropriate response for somebody who really needs medical help, said Portland Police Captain Mike Marshman. These folks being handcuffed in a car can traumatize them even more. Yes, wouldn't want the meth-mouth cardboard box dweller who's been screaming about fifth-dimensional reptile alien Illuminatus for the past hour to be traumatized. And we all know how liberals hate putting their little pet marginalized groups in cages. But honestly, tell me a situation where 911 is called on a person in the midst of a mental health crisis that requires them to be sent to a hospital or emergency psychiatric facility in a patrol car or ambulance where a crime wasn't committed. If the person was just standing on a street corner yelling at the sun, the cops would just tell them to move along because they're scaring the passersby who are trying to buy shit downtown. Other than that, people not leaving a business when asked to are trespassing, which is a crime, making threats or assaulting people, which is a crime, public defecation or littering, a crime, and lest we forget, public intoxication on alcohol, heroin, crack, meth, or otherwise, which has to be the #1 cause in Portland for people who seem crazy getting the police called on them. Police and ambulances should be the last resort, said Jason Renaud, a volunteer with the Mental Health Association of Portland. He suggested less expensive alternatives to an ambulance. Perhaps, he suggests, a mental health consumer in recovery could provide a transport service or even Uber. What would you call it? The crazy cab? The loony lift? The goober Uber? Get a fucking Uber. Are you kidding me? If the crazy people could be talked into going to a hospital, why wouldn't they just walk there? You think you put some nut job in a ride share, he isn't going to just assault the driver or run out at the first red light? What are you, an imbecile? Why do you think up until this point people in mental health crises needed to be either handcuffed or restrained with straps? Because they're a danger to themselves or others. If they had the capacity to go seek out proper mental health providers, the cops and EMTs wouldn't have been called out there in the first place. The punchline to this whole story is Portland currently has a tremendous police recruitment problem, and the local EMTs are getting assaulted more and more, occasionally in pretty extreme ways. And they're required to take on additional responsibilities that EMTs in the rest of the country don't have. And they're actively being discouraged from protecting themselves, aka putting their own safety first. Move over, Portland police recruitment crisis. Portland's EMT recruitment crisis is coming in hot.
Who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men? The shadow knows.
Salutations, bitches! This is your old pal Media Shadow asking you to do me the ultimate favor and hit the subscribe button. You can play coy with me all you like. We both know what you and I have is something special. Let's see where this thing takes us. If you don't subscribe, you might be making the biggest mistake of both of our lives.